ado, here's Celine.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see y'all joining us today, whether it's your afternoon, evening, or if you're joining us from another country. Thank you for joining. There's so many of you today. I'm really excited to see y'all, even though I can't see your faces. But I wanted to briefly introduce myself. I'm Celine. I'm the founder of Flowly. I'm seeing people from Boston, Chicago, Milwaukee, Texas, Colorado. So super exciting. So this is going to be our first in a series of workshops. And so we wanted to start this workshop series at a sort of fundamental level, making sure we're all sort of on the same page on the physiology, the neuroscience of what we do here, but also beyond. We're going to be discussing a lot about the nervous system today. And I know some of y'all who are our Flowly heroes are pros, but some people are joining in never having touched Flowly or touched the nervous system or understand it. So I'm going to try and make this as accessible and interesting for people on all levels, but send me your feedback, questions as I go along. A lot of the times in the discussion about mindfulness and mental health, we are exposed to what we call top-down approaches, right? So top-down approaches are things like meditation, talk therapy, CBT, and they're incredibly beneficial. But they take a different approach in that it starts from your mind and your brain to then affect the rest of your body and how you feel mentally and physically. Now, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be about the bottom-up approach. So starting from your body, meeting your body where it's at, understanding how to control it, shift it, so that you can then affect the rest of your mind. So a bottom-up approach. And I really love this bottom-up approach because it's not often talked about, yet it is so much more effective for a lot of us that suffer from stress, anxiety, chronic pain, or more. Because, doing these top-down approaches, often I can't even get myself into that mental state to absorb the therapy or the approach at hand. So bottom-up approach really meets my body where it's at, and for a lot of the heroes and patients we work with. My goal today with this workshop is to be able to share tools with you, share with you the science of how to manage stress, anxiety, or chronic pain. And the true long-term goal is to start this journey of maximizing the time you spend in your rest, digest, and relaxation mode to increase your health overall. I've personally sat through a lot of very boring, long online workshops, so I want to keep this as engaging and short as possible and leave a lot of time for Q&A. So please, please, please ask me all the questions you have. And even if I can't answer a question, I will get back to you. So send and chat in all the questions you have. Before I go into sort of the science of the nervous system today, I want to start by giving you some background on what we do and our team. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a moment. Awesome. I hope you guys can see. If you can't, send a little message into chat. So hi, everyone. I am Celine. I'm the founder and CEO of Flowly. We are an NIH-backed mobile app for pain, anxiety, and sleep management. I'm also a researcher and principal investigator on NIH and National Institute of Drug Abuse-backed controlled clinical trials, studying the use of VR for reducing pain, anxiety, and medication. I am joined by and uplifted by an amazing clinical and scientific team and engineering development team. Our scientific team includes the chair of perioperative medicine at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, the vice chair of pain medicine, my own father, who's actually the former director of neuroradiology at Duke, and our director of research, Dr. Lucas, out of USC. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is based on over 30 years of clinical and peer-reviewed science and studies, and a lot of it is made possible by these scientists, but also by many more that we will be talking about. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is the first workshop called How to Master Your Nervous System? And it's really because the autonomic nervous system is a key component of your entire body and all your organ and bodily functions. Your nervous system controls everything from your heart rate to your blood pressure to breathing rate to even sexual arousal. There's a lot of components to your nervous system that is completely unconscious. So it's hard for me to be able to say like, hey, Terry, one of our heroes, I know who's here today, please lower your blood pressure by 2 points, or increase your heart rate by 10. Things like that are what we call unconscious systems, right? But what's really interesting today is we're going to learn some of the conscious things we can do to affect these functions. And so you can really think of the autonomic nervous system in 2 parts. So on the left here, if you're facing the screen, you have the parasympathetic system, which is what we call the rest, digest, and recovery mode. And on the right, the red side, you can see the sympathetic nervous system. So that's your fight or flight mode, or even fight or freeze mode. But just for being able to get through this workshop, I'll say fight or flight, or rest and recovery mode. And you can see all the connecting functions of each of these systems. It's a lot. And you can see why it's so incredibly important as you move through your life to start to understand how the nervous system works, right? We learn language at school, we learn math, we learn some things that I personally think is not so useful as you get older, but we don't learn these really basic things on how to control functions in our nervous system. So I'm going to dive into it briefly with each side, and I'm going to start with this tiger here, because I like to think of this tiger as embodying the fight or flight mode, so our sympathetic nervous system. When your body believes there is a threat, it activates its fight or flight mode. In your fight or flight mode, your body will actually produce more stress hormones, increase heart rate, increase muscle tension, elevate blood pressure, and more. And why is this tiger embodying that? Well, think of it this way. Let's say today you were in the wild and you see a tiger stalking you. It's coming towards you. It's about to pounce. You freak out, right? You start sweating. Your heart rate blows through the roof. All your muscles are tensing up. You're getting ready to run, and you start running. You're escaping the situation, right? And that is your fight or flight mode at work. It is incredibly helpful for us, and it was evolved this way to really help us defend and rescue in certain threatening situations. So it is a really critical function that we need to have each day. Now, what's our parasympathetic system? Our parasympathetic system, which is represented by our Flowly mascot, Ebby, looking cute as always, is our rest and digest mode. And what this means is, let's say after you've escaped that tiger, you've brought yourself to the watering hole, you're starting to relax, take deeper breaths, you're not sweating anymore, your heart rate's getting lower, your blood pressure is decreasing. Well, that is your body entering its healing, its safety, and its recovery mode. And that is your parasympathetic system at work. So it is also equally important because you need one for the other, right? If you're going to fight or flight in a situation, you also need the time to restore, feel safe, and recover. So this, a lot of times we hear about this fight or flight, rest and digest mode. What is the issue for most of us these days? Whether you have a chronic condition, you have anxiety, you have stress, a lot of times in our society today, we live at a hypervigilant, sustained fight or flight mode. Whether this is because of the news, because of technology, because of your work, or the chronic condition that you live with pain, mental health disorders, etc., we often live at a heightened fight or flight mode. And so we actually are not as good as shifting our body into our rest and digest mode. So in order for us to understand how do we shift our body into this rest and digest mode, which is incredibly important, we need to first understand what causes our body to activate our fight or flight mode, right? And so I've broken it down into 2 types of threats that we experience. And this is studies and work that have been published by Dr. David Hanscom, Dr. Alan Gordon, and more. And basically, your body turns on the fight or flight mode when it perceives a threat. In the example I gave you, the threat is the tiger. But in reality, in our day-to-day, we don't meet tigers very often in the wild. We're living at home or in apartments and things like that. So we've kind of broken into 2 types. physical threats and mental threats. The tiger is an example of a physical threat. So physical threat is things like bacteria, parasites, a tiger, or even people we think are dangerous. Now, mental threat is more like memories, negative thoughts, insecurities, cognitive distortions, and more. The issue is when your body perceives a mental or physical threat, doesn't matter which one, it responds in the same way by activating your fight or flight mode. But it's really important to mention that mental threats, even though your body's responding the same way, you cannot actually react in the same way, because with a physical threat, you can literally run away, your body can fight off the parasite or bacteria, but with a mental threat, you can't just say, hey, I'm gonna walk away from my insecurity today, or run away from my cognitive distortion. So in a lot of ways, mental threats are actually harder to manage than physical ones. You cannot physically remove yourself from a mental threat. And in this day and age, with most people, we are experiencing mental threats at a higher rate and more often than a physical one. But there's good news. So the good news is your body, because it responds to these threats in the same way, we can also respond to our sympathetic tone in a similar way, which is by activating our parasympathetic system, almost like overriding our fight or flight response, and instead dosing it with relaxation, recovery, and safety. And I mean this in not a like woo-woo sense, but in a literal physiological sense, having your body turn on and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, how do we actually do that? So there is a key, believe it or not, to turning on your parasympathetic system. It's kind of like your on and off switch, and it's something we call the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve. It represents this main component in your parasympathetic nervous system, and it's a collection of nerves that start at the surface of your brain, but travels like a highway through the rest of your body, transmitting a ton of information. It's one of the connections between brain and body. Like you might have heard people say, oh, brain and body connection. Well, let me tell you, this vagus nerve is like the literal connection between brain and body. And it sends a ton of information about your inner organs to your brain. So on this slide, if you guys can see, there is a lot of functions, and it's not all of it, but just a snapshot of a few to give you an idea of how much your vagus nerve does. It sends information and helps decrease heart rate and vascular tone. In your liver, it helps to regulate insulin secretion, glucose homeostasis. In your gut, it can help increase or decrease gastric juices, stomach acidity. It also connects to inflammation, your brain, obviously, down to your mouth, and gagging, swallowing, coughing. These are all functions that your vagus nerve is affecting and sending information to and from, even your blood vessels. Now, obviously, this does a lot, and it's really well worth us learning about. So one thing that a terminology I'm going to use here is vagal tone. And what that means is when you are able to increase your vagus nerve activity, it's called vagal tone. So when you increase your vagal tone, you're able to actually activate your parasympathetic system. And the more control you have over these functions, even the ones here you see on the slide, the more you're able to have better control of your nervous system and shift your body from fight or flight mode to rest and recovery mode. As you may have surmised at this point, if you can increase your vagal tone, it's a pretty straight path to learning how to have better control over your health, down to your body, to your brain. And the really cool thing about the vagus nerve is that it is really similar to muscle, which means you can train it. And the more you train it, so the more you increase your vagal tone, the stronger it gets, and the better you have control over your parasympathetic rest, digest, and recovery mode. Now, this is a lot of information, so please hit me with the questions as I'm going along. But but I'm going to go into ways to increase your vagal tone. So we've established increasing your vagal tone, good, because increasing your vagal tone makes your vagus nerve stronger, which means you have better control of your nervous system. So you can tell your nervous system, hey, calm down. This is not a threat that I need to respond to right now. I'd like to actually restore, relax, and recover. So the ways that you can do that are actually quite a few. So I'm just going to list a couple. One is massage therapy, can actually increase vagal tone. Taking omega-3 supplements has been shown in studies to increase vagal tone. Cold and heat therapy is also that used for regular practice around stimulating the vagus nerve. Exercises like yoga and Tai Chi in particular have been shown to be incredibly effective for increasing vagal tone. Intermittent fasting is another way to do that, and even humming. So some of our Flowy heroes might have already learned this because we have the new humming roll that was released last month. Humming is incredible because it's so easy, everybody can do it, and by humming, you're actually directly stimulating your vagus nerve because you're stimulating your vocal cords and muscles in the back of your throat that actually touch the vagus nerve. Now, I am going to jump into the one technique, however, that is most shown and most backed in terms of consistently increasing vagal tone. And that's something called increasing your heart rate variability. Our Flowly heroes will know, like, you know, we talk about it all the time. So chime in too if you have things that I'm forgetting. But heart rate variability is the variance in time between your heartbeats. So unlike heart rate, which a lot of people think, oh, low heart rate is good, high heart rate variability is a good thing. Take a moment here, and if you can feel your pulse, some of us can, some of us can't, but if you can, inhale and feel your pulse speed up. And then when you exhale, your pulse should slow down. That is heart rate variability. Your heart is speeding up as you're inhaling and then slowing down as you're exhaling. The reason why it does that is because it's speeding up to help you perform and slowing down to help you recover. One really good example I love is, let's say you're a track athlete today, you're an Olympic athlete, you're like tip-top shape, height of performance and health. Now you're about to start a race, you're gonna run 100 meters. As you are starting the race, you're starting to sweat, your heart rate is going up, your blood pressure is going up, your muscles are tensing up, your sympathetic tone is activated, and your heart rate just bursts through the roof. It's going super, super fast. And then you run the race, you do really well, and as soon as you stop, your heart rate slows down immediately because it's immediately getting you into recovery mode. That is great health. That is optimal performance, optimal health, high heart rate variability, because your heart rate was able to increase like a rocket when you needed to perform and then slow down immediately when you needed to recover. The issue is most of us are not that Olympic athlete. We do not have that high HRV at all times. But the thing is we can train it. And the reason why increasing your heart rate variability is so helpful is that it actually helps your overall health. It's actually used as an index for your cardiac vagal tone, your heart health. And in this case, increasing heart rate variability can actually directly stimulate your vagus nerve and increase your vagal tone. Again, increasing your HRV increases vagal tone, which helps you increase the time you spend in rest, digest, and recovery mode. So again, though, HRV, you're like, wait, what? Like, how do I actually increase my HRV on command? It's not that easy because it's pretty unconscious. However, I stated some of the activities you can do to stimulate vagal tone, which also helps with HRV. But one really consistent way of increasing your HRV is through breathwork. Now, breathwork can come in a variety of ways, but there is one specific type of breathing that can increase HRV consistently, and it is called resonant frequency breathing. Resonant frequency breathing is the rate for each individual that you breathe at that will increase your heart rate variability the most. Fun fact, on average across humans, it's an average of 6 breaths per minute, but each person is slightly different. So in the military, they actually train snipers to breathe at 6 breaths per minute because that is the average across all humans, and it helps with their performance, HRV, all of the said above. But each person is slightly different. So I think for myself, I'm a 7.1. There's members of my team that are like 5.2, 6.3, etc. And what we do in Flowly is we actually help you calibrate your resonant frequency breathing rate so that you can actually train consistently on a daily basis of breathing at that breathing rate, which then increases your heart rate variability and directly stimulates your vagus nerve so that your body shifts into that parasympathetic rest, digest, and recovery mode. So I'm going to pause there. Talked a lot about vagus nerve, deep, resonant frequency breathing, etc. There's a lot of information to intake. And one thing I will say is that you can train your body as if you're an athlete. And the way that you think about that is that you're training your nervous system so that you gain better control over all these functions, so that when you do experience that moment of anxiety, of pain flare-up, of stress, of inability sleeping, you have this tool and this knowledge at your disposal to be able to know, okay, I can begin a training habit around breathing at resonant frequency, around yoga, around Tai Chi, around massage therapy to stimulate my vagus nerve and basically invest in my long-term health and help maximize the time I spend in parasympathetic rest, digest, and recovery mode. I'm going to end this part of the workshop, so I'll just have like a couple minutes more before I throw it to Q&A. But I'll end by a couple tips also that we've learned along the way working with the top researchers and scientists in this space. So these are going to be tools that I'm going to assume that you've developed a ritual around Flowly or some sort of resonant frequency breathing work, 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now, what are other tools you can use? So I recommend when you wake up in the morning, within 20 minutes of waking up, to actually expose your eyes to sunlight. So that means actually getting out of bed, going outdoors, and exposing your eyes to direct sunlight. Don't like stare at the sun directly, but as long as you're outside with the sun, you're actually resetting your circadian rhythm each day so that you're able to improve the sleep quality each night. So within 20 minutes of waking up, exposing your eyes to sunlight can do that. The other thing is studies have shown that ingesting 1,000 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids is equivalent, if not better, to taking antidepressants. So that's a study and a science that I encourage you to look into. The other really important tool, which we talk a lot about in Flowly, so our Flowly heroes will know this well, is nasal breathing. So inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. The reason is humans were not designed to mouth breathe, which is what most of us do today. Your mouth was designed for things like eating and drinking. It was actually not designed for breathing, but your nose is. Your nose has these structures called turbinates inside. They're like these little like wriggly structures that actually help filter bacteria. It filters the air coming in so that it's the appropriate temperature for your body when it enters your body. It also even maintains more moisture of the air that you're intaking and increases oxygen intake. So nasal breathing is something I recommend to everybody, and to the point where myself and a lot of our study team, we actually tape our mouths when we go to sleep so that we also nasal breathe when we sleep. And I can answer more questions about that. The other little tip I have for our caffeine intakers here is to wait 90 minutes after waking up to drink your coffee or whatever your proposed caffeine is. The reason is your cortisol levels go up in relation to sunlight and your body's wakefulness. So if you hold off on the coffee for the first 90 minutes after you wake up, you're actually maximizing the caffeine efficacy when you take it in 90 minutes after you wake up. And the last thing I'll end here is you cannot control your mind with your mind. And a lot of times, like I said, the mental threat, it's what we face on a daily basis. So if you think about it that way, you can't control your mind with your mind. You need to get out of your head. and meet your body where it's at. And all of these tools that I'm talking about around the nervous system, around breathing at resonant frequency, around Tai Chi, around yoga, is all about meeting your body where it's at so that you can maximize your health and then be able to take on other approaches, even if they are top down. All right. So threw a lot out there today. Thank you guys so much for spending the time with me, letting me ramble on and on about my favorite topics around the nervous system, breathing, the vagus nerve, which is my favorite nerve in the body, obviously. So I'm going to launch a poll here. Let's see if it works. We'd love to get your thoughts. And then as we're launching the poll, please send in questions, or I might even invite Rachel back on, and she can ask me questions. She might be seeing you guys send in or text us. Oh, and off the bat, I actually see 2 Q&A questions, so let me answer those. Beth is asking, how long of practice does it generally take to start seeing improvement? So this is a question that's totally dependent on what type of practice and what's your end point for improvement, right? So there's a lot of, it depends on your age, your gender, your hormone status, and depends on what the practice is. But what I'll say is, in terms of breathing at resonant frequency and biofeedback, we recommend once a day, 15 minutes a day, to really help your body get into that flow of training that vagus nerve and training the HRV. Elizabeth is asking how long to expose eyes to sunlight. It actually only needs to be 30 seconds to 5 minutes. So a couple minutes is what I recommend. What I do is when I wake up in the morning, I literally, I'm lucky enough to have a little porch. I can actually walk out into the porch, just kind of stare out into a tree for 2 minutes. And over time, you'll start to see how that impacts your sleeping and even your waking rhythms each day. Michelle's asking, when is the best time to do flow lead? How many sessions per day ideally? So again, I recommend minimum maybe once a day, although actually scientifically biofeedback sessions around heart variability and breathwork, they recommend maybe 3 to 5 times a week to get to efficacy. But if you do once a day, then you've pretty much ensured that you have a good training ritual. And I definitely recommend tying the act of you using flow lead to a ritual you have already each day. So whether that's I like to zone out in bed before I go to bed, or I like to scroll through social media before I go to sleep, but when I wake up in the morning, well, pair that with your flow lead. Put that phone into the headset, slip it on first thing in the morning, last thing before you get to bed, so that you have that consistent touch point. Because again, you're training your body as if you're an athlete. Okay, I see a question here. Are there plans to make the breathing and heart rate monitoring prompts in the app able to be adjustable so that they're not as prominent? So actually, that is a feature already in Flowly. And this is maybe not so clear, but if you go into your Flowly sessions, there's a little settings button. It looks like a gear icon. And if you tap on it, you can turn off the breathing guide, turn off the heart rate guide. So you can even toggle the music and voiceover. So Elizabeth, totally try that and let us know what you think. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to invite you in. Any questions that we're hearing from folks?
Hi. Yeah, I know one question that we've gotten before around resonant frequency breathing is how it's different from other breathing.
How it's different from other, yeah. So if you are versed in breathwork, breathwork has a lot of different types of breathing. For example, I'll do box breathing myself to help with performance. There's types of breathing to help you wake up more. Resonant frequency is really specific to sending your body into that rest, digest, and recovery mode. And it's really specific to increasing your heart rate variability. So that's why we focus so much of it on our sessions in Flowly. Although we will have other worlds coming out with other breathing focuses, we really wanted to give people the time to really train their resonant frequency breathing. And I will also note that as you get older, as situations change, as different medical issues crop up, your resonant frequency breathing rate might change. So I always recommend people to go back to the intro sessions and do the calibration sessions once in a while, just to check, is my resonant frequency breathing still the same? Has it changed? So let me update it. And it will automatically update when you do the calibration sessions. Someone is asking, do we have to use VR while using Flowly? The answer is actually no. You don't need to use the virtual reality component while you're doing Flowly. The core is around the biofeedback. So the breathing work, the heart rate variability, seeing your heart rate graph and seeing the effects in the environment. The reason why we pair it with VR is in studies, it actually shows to increase the efficacy and then also decrease the time it takes for biofeedback to take effect. And there's a lot of hypotheses around why. Some of the answers that I think really resonate with our team and our heroes is that VR creates a very focused environment for you to do the biofeedback in. It's high stimulus so that you're actually basically absorbing the biofeedback faster, and seeing how it affects the environment allows you to learn the biofeedback in a very visceral and strong way. Okay, someone is asking, any tips for prescription progressive eyeglass wearers now using only the heart rate monitor because it's hard with the glasses? Totally understand. So the headset does work with some people with glasses. You can also purchase a padding that actually increases the space between the headset and your face. That helps a lot with some people around focus issues or with the glasses, and you can always reach out to us for advice on that. But if not, I still recommend doing the sessions with the monitor and just the phone, because again, that is the core of the therapy. That's the core of the resonant frequency breathing rate. That's the core of the biofeedback of seeing your heart rate and learning how to increase HRV. What are the needed calibration sessions? So I believe right now the calibration sessions are session 1 and 6, and that's all the ones that you need to do. Yeah, and I'm seeing some people here saying that they are, some people use VR, some people don't. It's really up to your preference, but the data, the biofeedback, that's in all versions. So rest assured with that. Perfect. So I'm going to give any last chances for people to ask questions. Let's see. Someone's asking they'd like to give Flowly a try again. Well, please reach out to us. Christopher will help you get set up, help you answer any questions. Another person's asking again about daily practice. Daily practice, again, I recommend tying it with another key habit that you have. I actually heard today that somebody's been tying it to their work. So they actually do it at work at the same time of day. They'll actually have the headset and the heart rate monitor at the desk to help them, and that's incredible. Someone's saying, any future of the iPad? So currently we do not have iPad plans, just because iPad does not slip into the VR headset, as some of you have seen. But definitely that's something a lot of people are asking for. We can consider an iPad version for just the heart rate sensor. And I also want to say that, you know, a lot of you know me, Celine, the founder. A lot of you know my co-founders, Julian, Ray, Rachel, and more. We are really accessible to you. We take all feedback, questions. Please reach out to us. And please let me know what kind of topics you'd like us to cover in future workshops. I'd love to invite some of the top scientists and researchers that we work with to help answer questions. It can be to do with biofeedback. It can be to do with chronic pain. It can be to do with nutrition. We were just at a metabolic health summit talking about how Flowly has to do with metabolic health. So we want to cover everything and all that is helpful to you. All right. Thank you so much for attending the workshop today. I remember each and every one of you that is joining. I really appreciate you for coming along. One person, I think I'm missing a direct question from somebody. Rachel, I don't know if you had a question I'm not seeing. Oh, somebody's asking, can I track multiple patients? Yes. So one thing I will add is Flowly actually has a new program with providers where providers can actually recommend Flowy to their patients or clients and actually connect to their account via our provider portal and help guide their patients or clients in using Flowy. So seeing their session data, survey notes, and then helping guide them, of course, with mutual consent in their utilization. And if you have questions about if this is a fit for a provider you work with, or if you are a provider, please reach out to us directly and we can get you set up with that program. And there are billing opportunities as well for our providers that we work with. And to answer John's question, yes, you can track multiple patients. In fact, we have practices that are doing a lot of patients that are using Flowy and helping guide their progress. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time. My name is Celine. I'm the CEO and founder of Flowy, and thank you so much.